These reggae stars walked away from millions in fame for a shocking reason. I uncovered the secret tragedy that made one legend quit music forever. Their final confession will leave you speechless. You have to see why they chose God over everything. Lieutenant Stitchie once commanded dancehall's wildest corners, his voice quick as lightning, his lyrics sharp as blades, until steel and shattered glass tore through his body in a violent car crash that left him bleeding and broken, staring death in the eyes and hearing the whisper of God he had ignored. The hospital lights flickered. The pain crushed every nerve, and in that crucible he was reborn. Turning away from the rhythm of rivalry to sing only a salvation, his once boisterous DJ presence transformed into a messenger of gospel who no longer chased applause, but redemption. Papa San knew the darkness of tragedy even deep. His sister crushed in a bike wreck, his cousin slain by police bullets. Papa San was also haunted by the threat of prison walls. He could have drowned in fury, buried himself in dancehall's bravado, but in 1997 he bent to his knees, wept into the earth, and stood again as a born-again Christian, trading lyrical battles for sermons in rhyme. A man remade by grief's fire into a preacher whose voice thundered against the very streets that had swallowed his kin. Judy Mowatt, once a cornerstone of the I-Threes who circled Bob Marley's fire with harmonies that became immortal, drifted from Rastafari's chants into the embrace of Christianity in the late 1990s, her voice shifting from rebellion to reverence, her songs no longer bound to the Lion of Judah, but to the Lamb of Sacrifice. Carlene Davis faced her turning point in the sterile corridors of a hospital where cancer clawed at her body. And when she survived, her career bent entirely toward gospel, every stage, every note, every lyric dedicated to God she believed had spared her life. Sanchez, the velvet crooner who once made lovers swoon with honeyed tones, began to lace gospel into songs in the 1990s until entire albums rose from his soul like prayers, his catalog reshaped into testimony rather than seduction. Marion Hall, once known worldwide as Lady Saw, ruled dancehall with unflinching ferocity, her lyrics raw, her performances shocking, her crown secure as the queen of the genre until December 15th, 2015, when the waters of baptism closed over her body, and she rose not as Lady Saw but as Minister Marion Hall, abandoning the explicit empire she built and reshaping her fire into sermons and psalms, shocking her fans and silencing critics who never thought she would walk away. Sasha, too, who once sang the global anthem, I'm Still in Love with You, with Sean Paul, abandoned the pulse of dancehall in 2008. Shedding her stage name and devoting her voice entirely to gospel, a transformation echoed by Chevelle Franklin, who stunned audiences in 1998 when, instead of delivering the expected dancehall hit, she lifted her voice to sing a gospel song and publicly declared her faith, a moment that felt less like performance and more like resurrection. Junior Tucker had tasted early fame with hits like Happy and Don't Test, but he too shifted into gospel, not for spectacle, but for a profound reordering of his soul that redirected his entire career. Mark Moore, abandoning Rastafarianism as a teenager, founded Christafari in 1989, planting gospel firmly into reggae's soil, and his wife Avion Blackman, a Trinidadian artist in her own right, became not just his partner, but his harmonizing counterpart. Their marriage a union of melody and ministry that carried gospel reggae across continents. Sherwin Gardner brought Trinidad's own thunder into the gospel reggae world, fusing patois, dancehall rhythms, and scripture into a sound that pulsed with both street grit and sacred fire. Ryan Mark emerged in Jamaica's early 2000s as a forerunner of reggae gospel, dropping albums that proved the genre was not a compromise but a revolution. Its heartbeat as strong as any secular rhythm, but its message aimed skyward. Yabby U, born Vivian Jackson, had already declared his difference back in the 1970s when he refused to worship Haile Selassie, choosing instead to declare allegiance to Jesus and earning the name Jesus Dread, a lonely and controversial stance in the middle of reggae's Rasta-dominated landscape. George Nooks, once known as Prince Muhammad, faced the death of his grandmother in 2001 and turned fully to gospel in his grief, a reminder that loss often cracks the heart wide enough for faith to enter. Nora Dean, who carved her name with the hit Barbed Wire in 1970, turned away from secular spotlight later in life, her voice once playful now solemn with gospel devotion. Don Campbell, celebrated in Britain for his lovers' rock anthems, eventually turned the stage into a sanctuary, story, while Osmond Collins, who had left Jamaica for the United States, discovered his passion for gospel music as part of his migration journey. His career reborn in the land of exile. Clifford Faya Henry, who once cut dub plates with fire in 1991, surrendered his craft to gospel after becoming a Christian in 1994, redirecting his studio genius to build hymns instead of dancehall anthems. Denzel Dennis, a Jamaican who had settled in the UK as far back as 1963, also found himself aligning with gospel expression. His journey proved that the tremors of faith traveled across oceans and decades. Ambalik, deeply respected for his artistry and collaborations with producer Willie Lindo, eventually redirected his creativity to sacred purpose, while DeVille, after his own rebirth, left Jamaica behind for Florida, where his faith and his music found new ground. Dobby Dobson, who had serenaded reggae fans for decades, shifted in later years to gospel albums that closed a chapter of his life with devotion rather than desire. Hopton Lewis, who began his rise in 1971 with Grooving Out on Life, turned in later years almost exclusively to gospel, his early joy in secular success eclipsed by the piece of sacred music. Claudel Clark, who once stood in studio one alongside Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Alton Ellis, chose gospel as her enduring path. Her career transformed into testimony after years of rubbing shoulders with legends of secular reggae. Jermaine Edwards, a younger voice among these, grew into an award-winning gospel singer and songwriter. His profile so strong, he even became a Digicel brand ambassador, proving that one could embrace ministry without stepping entirely out of his ability. Ziggy Soul, once expected to carry the weight of being a Bob Marley protege, shocked many by rejecting the secular legacy in 1995 and fully dedicating his voice to Christian artistry. His decision to break from destiny as others imagined it. Julio Valsi, Puerto Rican pioneer of reggaeton who once rapped under the name Valsi, abandoned his old persona and became a born-again Christian, proving that even the rising genre of reggaeton was not immune to the current of faith. Karen Innes, too, took her place among those who shifted reggae's energy toward gospel, her voice another layer in this complex tapestry of redemption. Their stories do not fall in neat numbers, for life does not turn in countdowns but in shocks, in whispers, in crises, and in revelations that arrive when the stage lights dim and the applause fades into silence. Reggae was their first language, but faith became their last word, the unifying cord that stitched together lives scarred by death, healed by survival, redirected by conscience, or shocked by the realization that fame's crown weighs too heavily when eternity calls. What threads through them all is the unpredictable moment when stardom collides with silence, when applause rings hollow and the echo inside the soul grows louder than any festival crowd, when a microphone feels less like a weapon and more like a confession booth. Together, these 30 stories defy order, for they were not born in countdowns but in chaos, not arranged in hierarchy but in revelation. Some came early, like Mark Moore at 17. Some came late, like Carlene Davis after decades of career in a battle with cancer. Some came in youth surprise, like Chevelle Franklin shocking an audience mid-performance. Some came in mature renunciation, like Marion Hall dismantling an empire of dancehall and shocking an entire nation. The timing mattered less than the turn, the moment the spotlight dimmed and eternity's fire ignited. Reggae may have birthed them, but gospel claimed them. Their music did not vanish. It was reborn, stripped of seduction, armed with testimony, still carrying bass lines that shook the body, but now carrying words that pierce the soul. And so the tale of 30 reggae stars who chose God over fame is not one of decline, but of ascension, not one of loss, but of transformation. They walked away from riches, applause, tours, and the immortality of secular hits, and they walked into obscurity in some eyes, ridicule in others, yet peace in their own. To fans, it may have seemed madness. To them, it was the only sanity left. They remind us that the music of Jamaica and the Caribbean has always been about more than rhythm and rhyme. It has always been about searching, resisting, confessing, surrendering. These 30 did not simply switch genres. They switched kingdoms. Their lives, tangled in tragedy, triumph, illness, conviction, migration, rebellion, and surrender, weave together into a chorus louder than any dancehall speaker, a gospel that keeps playing long after the applause has died. Which of these transformations struck you the most? Which artist's decision to leave fame for a faith feels the most powerful to you? Drop your reflections in the comments so we can reason together. And if you want more untold stories of reggae legends, redemption, and radical change, then subscribe right now so you never miss the next revelation.